What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the show. This is episode 6. Today's guest is Joe Long. He's a good friend of mine who has an avid passion for the outdoors, hunting, and specifically traditional bow hunting. He was born in Houston, Texas, but raised in Georgia. Joe grew up hunting the mountains and foothills of North Georgia and Eastern Tennessee, mainly hunting white-tailed deer, turkey, pigs, and coyotes. Today, we're going to talk to Joe about his passion for hunting, discuss the traditional side of bow hunting. We're also going to speak about the proposal in Colorado, which seeks to ban mountain lion hunting and the negative impacts that come along with it. And finally, some of his tactics for turkey hunting. Enjoy the episode. Joe, thanks for coming by, man. I know you're busy. I appreciate you taking the time to come by and sit down and talk with me a little bit on the show. This is episode 6, I believe. So still new, but we're up and running. Things are coming along, getting better each episode. But I want to sit down and talk to you a little bit. You're kind of my go-to when it comes to all things outdoors and hunting, and especially now the traditional archery that I'm starting to dabble in a little bit. Cause you are the traditional guy for me. You're the go-to traditional guy.
I appreciate that.
So you've, kind of steered me in the right direction for everything. And now I'm kind of getting into this. I kind of wanted to get your take on it. Like, what was the thing that drew you to the traditional archery side of things versus compound bow or even, guns?
So basically I grew up playing around in the woods. A lot of kids my age back then wanted to play Nintendo, stuff like that. I wanted to be outside. So being part of that, being outside is building your own bows, out of whatever you can find. Whether it be bamboo canes, stuff that you're not supposed to use around the house,
right?
Stuff like that. So me and my brother are big into running around the woods, cowboys and Indians, stuff like that. I want to say it's probably 7 or 8 when I actually magically built a bow that actually worked, and found an arrow that had feathers on it already, and I just sat there and I put one shot through it, and that arrow just kind of flew perfectly. I'm like, oh, that's what it's supposed to look like.
It typically doesn't go that well with your own homemade bow.
It wasn't kicking around or anything like that, and it's just perfect. And then from that point on, I kind of became obsessed with, a lot of people call it the mystical flight of the arrow. Mm-hmm. If you listen to Ted Nugent or read any Fred Bear books, that's what they call it. So from that point on, I started asking for bows for Christmas. Got a few older fiberglass bows, and things like that. And we'd just run around the woods shooting rabbits, or trying to shoot rabbits, trying to shoot squirrels.
So you've been shooting trad bows forever.
So I did it a lot as a kid. However, when I got older, teenage years, I kind of put it down around probably 12 or 13 because I became enamored with other things. As most young men do, sports and things of that nature. But I still hunted, so I would mostly hunt with a gun. I never really picked up a compound until I was probably 17 or 18 years old, just dabbling with it. But I gun hunted, go out, shoot the first thing I saw, normal teenage type hunting. But where I really got into the hunting aspect of it was after I'd gotten into compound a little bit and shot a few deer with it, with a compound, and then started getting, I don't want to overinflate myself, but it became a little too easy with a compound. Deer would walk in 40, 50 yards in the woods. A lot of people are like, no, you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to shoot that way. Archery equipment, whatever. I did it, and it worked. I killed some deer that way. And then that's when I started looking more towards the traditional thing.
So where did you get your start in hunting at? Was it in Texas?
No. It was in Georgia.
Okay,
my
Georgia.
Start in hunting was, like I mentioned previously, running around with a bow, trying to shoot rabbits, trying to shoot squirrels.
That's where my son's at right now.
That's a great age. I find myself doing that now, and I'm almost 40.
Yeah, that's like me and him go out. He's like, "Hey, Dad, you want to go squirrel or rabbit hunting?" I'm like, Yeah, let's go.
Absolutely.
Let's do this. Let's see what happens. Yeah, it's a blast, man. But so now you primarily just shoot traditional, right? I mean, you have a compound bow though.
I have a compound. I bought it from you, so you know it.
Yeah, so I know you've got a compound bow, but I rarely see the compound bow. It's like I typically, I think I see it. You bring it out whenever you go to New York. Is that what it is?
I do.
Yeah.
So
it's got like its own special purpose.
It's got a special purpose. We have an arrangement with some farmers up there that they want us to kill does, as many deer as you can. If we have the opportunity to shoot them, shoot them. So that's when the compound comes out, because we're primarily field hunting, taking longer shots if need be. So,
right.
And then also the time of year we go up north, it is raining on us a lot. So when it comes to traditional gear, feathers, wet feathers, no bueno.
So what about when it comes to, you talking about feathers, what about the new like trad vanes that are like a synthetic material? Do you run those ever?
I have used them. I've got a few arrows fletched up with them right now. Actually hunted with them quite a bit last year. What I've found to be an issue with those is durability.
Really?
Walking through thick stuff like we have around here,
yep.
They'll easily be torn by briar's brush.
Oh, I could see that.
It doesn't matter what you use as an adhesive. They're really flimsy. They don't have a really good thick portion of the vein like a normal vein, compound vein would come with. That's
like you're talking about the channel where it actually adheres to the shaft itself?
Yes. They don't have a very thick area to really get a good adherence to the arrow. So smallest imperfection in the glue or smallest piece of brush that snags it, it's going to tear it.
Right.
I've learned.
Yeah. So whenever you come to, so just getting on to the arrow side of things, you typically run feathers. Is there a feather length that you prefer? Or is that based off of kind of application, what you're doing?
It's based off application. Based off application. So I've found if you use a smaller fletching, 2.5 to 3 inch feather, and do a 4 fletch, that it is affected by wind a lot less. You're shooting a traditional arrow, a traditional bow, you'll find shooting in the wind becomes an issue.
Okay.
Because your arrow is not going as fast. It's not as efficient as a compound in the wind. So shooting in a crosswind, you're going to see that arrow kick out whichever way the wind is blowing. If you're shooting a smaller feather and your bow is tuned correctly, you'll see a lot less wind drift, if you will. Really? As well as if your feathers get wet, take an arrow fletched with 3 5-inch feathers, douse it in water, shoot it. You're gonna, on a tuned bow, you're gonna see a lot of accuracy issues with that. Your point of aim, point of impact is gonna be way off.
Even at like, I mean, are we talking about like greater than 10 yards, or because that's about where I'm at with the trad bow?
Within 10 or 15 yards, you're going to see a difference.
Really?
Yeah, because it's taking that big, huge feather is basically soaking up water.
Right.
It's adding weight to the back of your arrow, which is going to throw the tune of that arrow off. You take smaller fletchings, smaller feathers, put it on the back of an arrow, douse it in water. That's less surface area that is being soaked with water, less weight, less difference to your tune.
Right. Okay. That makes
That's
sense.
what I found.
Right. So whenever do you shoot longbows too? Longbows, recurve bows. I mean, you got a mix. Do you change out your feathers based off of the bows themselves too? Like I prefer a 5-inch feather on a recurve bow versus, I don't know, a 3-inch feather on a longbow.
So I do shoot both styles of bow, if you will. However, I usually hunt big game, at least deer hunt, bear with a recurve, because I personally find that I shoot a recurve better than I do a longbow.
Why is that? What is the? I've never messed with longbows ever, so I have no idea.
So I do a lot of testing, I do a lot of shooting. Ask my wife. I'm in the yard a lot, but I think for me it is the weight difference, the weight factor. A recurve is got a solid riser, thick riser. Your long bows are usually smaller and lighter. But personally, I find myself enamored with longbows because of the tradition of it.
It's as like as primal as it gets, isn't it? Is. Like stick and string.
It is. You take a longbow, some 5-inch feathers, 4-inch. I prefer the 4-inch feathers on a longbow because I don't like the big long 5s, but I like the look. And traditional can be about look sometimes. I like the look of a 4-inch feather on an arrow. Take that longbow into the woods. There's something primal about it when you walk in with it.
Yeah.
Even if you can't hit anything with it, you feel like you're there. You're getting back into your ancestral roots.
Yeah, I could see that. Even with just going from compound bow just to like, I got a Satori now that I've been messing with, right? Just going to that. I mean, it's such a learning curve. It's very, very difficult for me to be consistent with it because there's the draw length. I mean, it doesn't roll over and stop at, 28.5 inches, finding my anchor point, anchoring correctly. I've just really struggled with. And, I talked to Ruben, I'm like, hey dude, what's your draw length supposedly whenever you shoot your trad bow? He's like, I'm drawing at like 29.5 inches or something like that. I'm like, I don't understand how, because whenever I measured mine, I'm 27.5. And they're like, you're probably collapsing somewhere. And I'm like, I don't feel like it though.
So there are some mechanics to shooting a traditional bow. And he was probably right with that. You're probably collapsing under the weight because, like you said, you don't have cams, you don't have let off.
Right.
The farther you draw that bow, the greater the resistance you're going to get from the bow.
Right.
So a lot of guys have that issue shooting heavier bows. They'll come to full draw. They don't, and the front shoulder start collapsing under the weight of the bow. So they'll start doing this, and one little movement like that is going to throw off your shot.
And it throws everything off. Like, it's dramatic.
Yeah. So getting to the Ruben thing, like that's something that me and him actually worked through together, and it's good that he has mentioned that to you.
Yeah.
Set that front shoulder. We can talk about it.
And that's what we talked about. And so one of the things he told me, it's almost like you kind of flare your lat out. And is that how you kind of eliminate that from collapsing, is just pushing your lat out, almost flexing it?
Exactly. Just flexing the lateral muscle. You probably can define it better than I can. The lat, yes, pushing it out, set your shoulder, and then that's just bone on bone contact between you and the riser, and you don't let it move. Right.
Yeah. That's one thing that I've just really had an issue with this, because the more he says it, the more I'm like, okay, I've got to think through every aspect of this shot from beginning to end. If not, something's off.
And it's funny you say that. A lot of guys, I talk about the traditional stuff, or I see people talking about traditional stuff. A lot of guys are shooting compounds like, I just can't do it. I can't do it. What they don't realize, shooting a traditional bow, whether you hunt with it or not, in your yard, in your garage, on your personal range, taking the time to learn how to shoot a traditional bow correctly, work out a shot process, work through your shot process, be intentional with your shot process. If you can shoot that traditional bow at 15 yards accurately, you pick up your compound, you're going to be invincible.
Yeah. I can see that.
You're teaching yourself the correct mechanics, and your mind is working through everything, and your body's doing it in sync at the same time.
Right.
So that's one thing that I've found personally, and that I've seen in other people, is after shooting traditional for so long, I can pick up a compound and make a stupid long shot, even after not shooting it for a year.
Right. Because you can just work through that process that efficiently.
Yep.
Yeah. So what about, whenever you've got your bow, you're in the woods and you're hunting out of a stand, you typically hunt out of a saddle, right?
Correct. So
do you ever find any issues with angles with a traditional bow versus a compound bow? Do you have any, because the traditional bow is so much longer, right? We're talking like 62 inches versus, a 32-inch bow. Do you ever have any issues or shot angle issues whenever I can't take the shot with a traditional bow like I could with a compound bow?
Short answer, no.
Yeah.
For one reason, with a traditional bow, I'm not having to level out like you are a compound. Draw back, acquire your peep, acquire your sight housing, acquire your level out. I find it harder to shoot a compound bow out of a saddle than I do a traditional bow,
Really?
at least from 0 to 25, 30 yards.
Okay.
With that traditional bow, if I have to make a weird angle, I mean, I can dang near turn that thing from, horizontal.
Right. Trying to think flat and shoot
if
it.
I need to.
Yeah.
I've actually had to do that to get in between branches, to get my arrow to go in between branches, trying to shoot through thick stuff. And that's all comes with like practicing those angles. I mean, you can get in your yard. I'll take a normal chair and set it in front of me, and then I'll take my bow, lean over, and basically get my bow horizontal and shoot under the chair. It's teaching yourself shot angles,
right,
and knowing what that arrow is going to do when it comes off your bow when it's being shot horizontal. It's not going to do the same thing it's being shot as if you're holding it vertical. So that comes with practice, but that was the long answer to add to my short answer. But no, I don't really have to worry about the angles as much as I do with a compound, I feel.
Do you, so I hunt out of a saddle too, and I hunt out of a lock on. So one of the things, like, I feel like I have more shot opportunities, I don't know if that's the right word, when I'm hunting out of a saddle versus with my lock on. Cause like whenever I'm sitting here and I'm 5'8", this bow's 62 inches. I was messing around my yard and I was up in a tree sitting on the lock on up against the tree. And that's one of the things I do like about the lock on is I feel like I move less, right? I feel like I can kind of blend into the tree itself. I try to get a little bit wider tree. I can sit back. I don't move. With a saddle. Maybe I move a little bit more. Maybe I don't. But when I'm sitting in that lock on and I go to draw the traditional bow, I'll notice I have to come out way far out to get the angle to not hit the bow on my actual stand.
That is an issue for a lot of, I'm not trying to rub it in, but I'm a little bit taller.
Yeah.
I've never really had that issue before, but yes, with the saddle, I've also found that, when you're standing straight up and say the deer's right under you, you draw the compound, point that straight down like that instead of bending at the waist. What's that arrow going to do?
Right.
With a saddle, so standing on your lock on, you pull back, shooting with a compound, you're supposed to
bend
lean
at
down
the
with your waist.
Right.
Out of a saddle, I found I don't have to lean any with my waist unless the animal is directly under me.
Right.
And that's just causing my body to need to lean that way because I'm having to change how I'm shooting.
Right.
That's one thing that I enjoy and that I've found works for me with a saddle is I'm not having to think about the lean as much because if you
it's almost more natural.
It is. Correct. I don't know. I've missed some deer not leaning, standing in a lock on or a climber before I started using the saddle exclusively.
Right. Yeah. I think there's pros and cons to everything. And like I said, the reason I like the lock on, or I've used it more this year than I have. And I kind of use it as like a hybrid, right? Sometimes I'll stand, sometimes I'll sit. I feel like, whenever I'm just more still because I got busted twice last year just for the littlest. I didn't feel like I should have, but just the littlest fidget. And it's like, boom, they busted me. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to sit here and I'm not going to move until I have the perfect opportunity. And I guess that just comes with woodsmanship skills too, right? Just knowing when you can't, but typically I would move whenever I didn't see them. And then they bust me from off in the distance. I'm like, oh, there goes my hunt.
That has happened to me as well. But what you can do with those experiences is learn from them.
Right.
Learn from them. If you're going to be hunting out of a saddle, which is something that I have learned to do exclusively when I'm in the saddle, is I'm going to get myself into some back cover.
Yes.
I do. And I hardly, just by the nature of the deer that I hunt, I don't go into the woods to hunt a deer. I go into the woods to hunt the deer. Usually I'm going after a specific type of buck. And those big mature deer are not going to find themselves during daylight hours in big timber meaning wide open timber. they'll skirt the outskirts of it. They'll use the thick stuff right on the edge of it to cruise, look for does, wind check. But I'm not going to be basically out in the middle of big timber without any back cover. And that back cover gives you the ability to move a little bit.
Right.
But you're not going to be standing up there waving.
Right.
But just to break up your outline a little bit. The back cover is a big thing.
It's crucial.
So getting back, just one quick remark, with the traditional stuff, the traditional gear, I'm not getting as high as a compound hunter usually is. They're people, I think they don't need to. They take it as like a sense of pride. Oh, I can get 25 or 30 feet up. Do you really need to do that? Do you understand your shot angle at that point with an arrow, much less a traditional arrow or a compound versus traditional? Your shot angles can be way off.
It's wicked. Shooting an angle that steep is very difficult. I mean, the closer that deer, the worse to me. I'm like, dang it, I'd rather you be further away so I could take a shot. I like that as well. Like I typically, whenever, especially hunting around here, I'm usually 10 to 12 feet for
anything higher than 15. You don't really need it.
Well, especially here too. It's so green and thick all the time. I mean, you end up,
in the canopy,
like above the canopy, unless you're hunting those wide open, like, pine.
So if you're gun hunting, like I also will carry a gun if I feel the need, if it's a windy day. Because if it's a really windy day and I'm hunting a deer, well, not a, but the deer, and I want to kill that deer, I'm not going to get close to that deer's core area, so close that the wind can shift and bust me.
Right.
Because I could just run the entire hunt, if not the whole year. So the gun hunters, that's fine. You want to get higher than 15 feet. That's cool.
Makes sense.
Archery hunting, I'm not going to do it. There's no need really. Get yourself into some cover, some back cover. Pay attention to the sun, which way the sun coming up, which way it's going down, and then be as still as you can.
Yeah, that's the hard part. So do you have any issues hunting out of a saddle as far as like comfort or? So I don't. Like that's why I'm at, because I hear some guys. That's the biggest. We've talked about this before. That's like one of the biggest, complaints that people get without actually understanding it or have ever done it. They're like, I can't imagine standing all day. Well, I mean, I think it's way more comfortable than sitting personally. I mean, and it's not like you're standing. It's almost, to me, I'm leaning.
Correct.
Do you keep your knees against a tree?
So that's one thing I don't do. And a lot of the small circle of friends that I have, as far as hunting, they all think I'm a psycho because I don't wear knee pads.
I don't either.
I don't lean against the tree. I hardly ever do that. If I do, it's maybe for 15, 20 seconds. I like to stay ready.
Yep.
Because everybody's done it. Like a deer will get up on top of you and you're not ready, and there's nothing you can really do about it.
That's the end.
At that point, you have to use your skills to determine when you need to move.
Right.
And if you haven't learned animal behavior and you haven't been around deer or around your game animal of choice at a close proximity for a long time, you're not going to know when and where to move.
Right. That's the great thing about bow hunting, man. I mean, that's the challenge, is because you're there, you're on top of it. And that's what makes it so difficult, because that's when all your woodsmanship skills and everything really come into play, and you have to, kind of prioritize everything, because whenever you're in the woods, and I look at it too, because you'll notice movement, like the slightest little, it's very easy to pick up on whenever you're in the woods. So now as a human that's clumsy or something like that, any kind of movement you have, that deer, I mean, that animal's going to pick up on it right away, and that's the end of the hunt.
So I compare it to this. You've been on some out of state trips where you're out there for 3 or 4 or 5 days, right? So when you get there on that first day, how do you feel? Like when you're up in the tree, do you feel like you're like in tune? You're ready to go? Like the smallest flicker of movement, you're on top of it?
Me?
Yeah. How do you feel on the first day?
Compared
to the last day?
The first day? Oh, man, I'm like, I'm on high alert. And obviously, probably a little overexcited. Yeah, it's when I first get there, it's like, oh man, I feel, and it depends on where I'm at, right? So whenever I go to Kentucky and I get there, I'm overly excited. I'm ready to, and I blow it right away. Typically, that's what I did this year. You know, I was a little overzealous, got in there right away, pushed a little harder than I probably should have, and got busted right away. And as, you know, time went on, I felt like I became more in tune, if that makes sense, with.
So why do you think that is?
I don't know. Too many energy drinks.
That's a possibility. So I asked you that to go this route, I guess, for a second, if you don't mind. Human beings are supposed to do this. Like you said, that first day you're out there, you're a little overzealous. You're not as sharp. That's because we live in the world that we live in. We have a phone. We have other people. We have business. We have work. 5, 6, 7 days in, that predator nature that human beings are supposed to have starting to kind of take back over a little bit. At least that's what I've found, because I've done this past year. I was on a 16-day whitetail trip, which that's a lot of hunting. And I've always found that 5 or 6 days in, your body's in tune, your eyes are catching everything, you're smelling everything differently. Like, you can walk through an area and be like, that's a buck, or that's a doe. No, I think it's an amazing thing. But once you hit that level, whenever your body's like in tune with being in the wild, being in nature, it's pretty amazing to me anyway. It makes me pretty happy, excited to talk about it.
Agreed. And that was, so you bring up a good point, making me think, man, actually kind of recap my trip. It took almost my entire trip for me to really get there to that point. But because at first I'm looking at my phone, you know, still got a lot of other things on my mind. And it seems as the days kind of progress, it was easier to get out in the woods and be in that moment versus whenever I first got there. And it took like day 4 or 5, you know, of being there for that to really kind of happen.
I mean, you're moving quieter through the woods, paying a little bit more attention to your surroundings. Yeah. It's kind of amazing how humans will kind of revert back to their original instincts.
Right.
Sorry, I might have let us off on a tangent when you said that. It kind of rung a bell upstairs. I like talking about that.
Yeah, I do too, man. I mean, and you don't think, like, at least for me, I not really even consider that, because typically my hunts around here are, you know, you go out for a little bit, you get to hunt a couple days maybe, and you go back, you still got business going on. Before you go hunt, you got something you're working on. After you hunt, you got something to get back to, family. But whenever you go out on like that out of state trip, it's completely different.
It's game on.
It is, man. It's awesome. I think it's why you look forward to it so much. It's a complete disconnect from normal life, and you get the ability to go back out and do that, like that primal thing that feels natural once you get back to that state.
Being comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's what I like to call it sometimes. Yeah. Because you're out there, you're cold. It's wet a lot of the times. And that's one thing that I hate, is being cold and wet. But if I'm in a tree, and I have a mission, or I have a purpose for being there, I don't really care.
Right.
And some people are like, how do you do that? How do you, because I'll sit there all day, and my hunting partners are the same way. They'll sit there all day and be completely miserable, but you're completely happy on the inside at the same time.
Yeah. It's definitely unique to, you know, for someone that's never done it or been in the woods like that. Cause I do know a lot of people like that who live in the city. They've never experienced what it is to be, you know, in the woods by yourself, you know, for days on end, hunting something. I mean, it's a pretty, to me, it's a thrilling experience. I mean, there's not much more that I enjoy than that.
I'm right there with you. I do enjoy steak.
This is true.
A big ribeye. It's one of my favorite things. However, I take more pride in eating what I kill. And sorry that I don't want to say, a lot of people kind of look at me weird when I say kill. I don't say harvest a lot. I'm not out there picking tomatoes. I'm out there killing something. I'm not trying to take the glory away from the animal. But I think from my standpoint, saying harvest, because you're taking a soul, you're not harvesting a soul. You're taking a soul whenever you kill something.
Right.
You're using that meat to bring sustenance to your body and your family's body, to your table. I think calling it harvest is just kind of taking a little away from that. That's my personal view. Some people might not agree with it. That's just how I am. But when I take pride in that, and a lot of the red meat that I eat year-round is deer, elk. I love me some turkey fingers. So, yes, a lot of people from the city don't understand exactly what we're doing out there. I'm not disparaging anybody from the city,
right?
Because I've grown up everywhere. I've lived in a city. I've had to, because it's just the situation I was in with my career at the time. But they don't understand what we're doing out there. We're not. They're going to they're killing their food with a credit card. We're going out there and actually taking, I don't want to say the dirty work, but doing the work ourselves, and we find pride in that.
Yeah, I agree. And I can see where some guys say harvest as, maybe, it's because it is such a sensitive thing, right? I mean, and I think most people try to do the best especially hunters, do the best they can to, make it so it's not such this like taboo, like grotesque thing, so that, maybe they use the word harvest. I've always been a fan of saying kill myself, because, you're out there, you're killing something. It is what it is.
And I guess if I was, well, let's put it this way. If I was sitting in front of a group of children and I was teaching a hunter's education class, I would use the word harvest because of the target audience there.
Right.
If I was sitting in front of...
Well, that target audience is a lot of your non-hunters. I think you might have to talk to them the same way.
Well, the non-hunters, I can explain that to a little bit easier.
Right.
So, yeah, I guess we could... the target audience thing. But as an adult non-hunter, I think I would be able to explain that well enough that they would be able to understand it, unless they're just one of those type that don't want to hear it.
Well, there's a lot of that, unfortunately. And I think if people actually got out and experienced it and realized that it was more than just that kill, it's the actual hunt itself, it's the preparation, it's the strategy, all the things that go into it, it would really probably change their perspective on it, on hunting as a whole, right? Because, I mean, you look at it, a lot of people, anti-hunters, whatever they are, and I get where they're coming from, right? Cause it is, you're killing something, I mean, I've always been a big believer in, you don't just kill things to kill things. I teach my kids that. I'm not, a believer in just going out and killing something for the fun of it or the sport. I think there should be a purpose behind it. And I think with the anti-hunting community, or all the non-hunters out there, I think that if they actually experience it from somebody that's a true hunter, and they went out there and they saw everything that went into it, they would have a different, not all of them, but I think a lot of them would have a different outlook on it. Because let's look at it. Think about it. Do you go and buy your food from the store? Have you ever I know you've seen, the factory farms, right? How disgusting these animals are, on top of each other. The way they're treated, the lack of, nutrients that they get, their food. I mean, I'm also not a big believer in, animals in captivity, right? I don't like it, right?
Oh, it is. It's not
natural. It's not the life that animal's supposed to have. They should be out there in nature, stretching their bodies out, being able to run,
doing what they were put here to do.
Exactly. So yeah, I don't know, man. I think it's a very difficult thing to to tell somebody about. I think it's really something that they'd have to experience to really understand it. And that's where the issue is.
So I've had these conversations with people, and I think I was able to articulate it good enough for them to understand it. At least
I'm not good at that.
The few that I've talked to. So I am a hunter. I enjoy hunting. As much as people don't believe it, sometimes I don't enjoy the killing part. I love the pursuit. I love the shot. I love the feeling of making a good shot. But then, you get the initial jitters right after the shot, adrenaline dump, all that good stuff. But as you're walking up to that animal, and then I love the blood trail. I love trailing and tracking. As you walk up and you see that animal, I don't know if you've noticed it, but at least with me, there's always that sense of, like, not regret, but
guilt.
I guess you can call it guilt a little bit. Like, I don't know. I like to equate it to, like, you just took another life. I'm not trying to over dramatize things,
right?
But that's how I feel. And then it kind of goes away once you get to the work portion of it, because you know that meat, that animal, is going to get used. But moving on past the hunter thing, like, saying that, I love animals. I love watching animals. And truthfully, when I'm hunting, when I'm in the woods, especially with a traditional bow, I am watching animals more than I'm shooting animals.
Right.
But to kind of, like, to drive this point home and to maybe touch on the traditional thing just a little bit more, even after we've moved on, hunting with that traditional bow has made me a better hunter because I get to watch animals. I'm sitting there, I'm watching how these animals, these deer, pigs, whatever it may be, how they're interacting with each other, how they're interacting with their environment, how they act if I was to mess up on my entry and they hit my ground scent where my boots have touched the ground, and I get to see how that doe or how that buck, because they react differently depending on their age and depending on their maturity. I get to see how they react to that. That's just tools of the toolbox up here. So I'm getting to see all those things, but I legitimately enjoy watching animals interact with their environment. So couple that when talking to a anti-hunter, if you want to call it that, couple that with, I'm out there to hunt either the deer or a mature deer, whether it be a mature buck or mature doe. For numerous reasons. One reason, they're larger. There's more meat on them. I get no enjoyment out of shooting a small button buck or a small yearling doe. There's not a lot of meat on it, and they're not to the maturity level of they haven't gained all the skills to be able to survive. So it is super easy for anybody to go out there and shoot a small yearling deer. What is not easy to do is go out and shoot a 4 or 5 year old buck or a 3 or 4 year old doe, because they're tried and true. They're gangsters. They've been out there living, and they've been living hard. And to kill one of those, to put an arrow through one of those at 15, 10, 8, 6 yards, it's tough. So I'm after mature animals. But where I kind of segue with talking to those people after that is I'm hunting mature animals for another reason. Nature is brutal. The worst thing for a mature animal to go through is to starve to death. And as deer get older, as animals get older, they start to lose their teeth. They start to their health will dwindle. I want to say around 10, 11 years old, something like that. A mature buck has mostly lost his teeth, especially around here because the soil is gritty, it's sandy. They don't have a lot of acorns, so they're chewing on random things. So if you look at an 8 or a 10-year-old buck around here, their teeth are flat, nearly gone. Anytime after that, he's going to start losing body mass. He's going to start slowing down. What's going to happen when he slows down? He's either going to starve to death, or he's going to get wrapped up by coyotes or another predator. And to die being eaten alive, to me, sounds like the most horrendous thing. So I would rather take a mature animal, because nature's going to run its course whether you do it or not.
Right. It's probably the best way to, I mean, no, right. You think about death, no matter what is scary. Right. But as a hunter, I think your sole purpose when taking that is to make a good, clean, efficient shot. That's why we preach so much here. Like, you need to spend time behind your equipment before the season comes, right? You should be efficient. You should be lethal with your whatever you decide to take in the woods. You should be very well prepared before you head out there and take a shot on an animal, which I still think is part of is a missing piece for some people, some hunters, right? They want to get out there. They got a brand new something. They're going out next week to go hunt with it, to me, which is not necessarily the best choice. And, it's kind of gives hunters a bad look too, because the potential for something to go wrong, a bad shot, is so much greater. So I think when it's such a sensitive topic, hunting, right? For so many people. I mean, even, people that have been around it their whole life that don't hunt, it's still one of those things that not everybody gets it. And I don't, one of our, and one of the reasons I wanted to sit down and talk to you is you're very good at articulating things. I'm not. So
I appreciate it.
It's one of those things that I don't know. And there's some organizations out there, right, that do a really good job, advocating for hunters, and putting, bring it to light in a positive way. But I think that's what we need more of. And that's what's one of the missing pieces, because if you look at it, hunters' rights, I mean, it seems like every year they're slowly, kind of slipping away, and the potential for them to slip away is, it's very high. And I think, and it's even harder nowadays, especially too, to get into hunting, because you can't, like, for example, like private land. It's impossible to find private land to hunt around here.
It really is.
Impossible. Especially around here. And, and then you get onto public land and, there's,
I don't want to mention dog hunting on here. It's probably not a route we're going to go down.
We've already spoke on it a little bit.
Everybody that knows me knows my thoughts. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
However, yes, there are some things that are being kind of chipped away slowly. Mostly, I don't want to say mostly, but a lot of it is happening out west. We talked briefly on things happening out there. I think the most recent things were the release of wolves in Colorado, and then
which is recent, right?
Recent. So the petition started around 2020, and I have a funny story with that. We can get into it shortly if you'd like to. And then the most recent thing is amongst the social media, chatter, is the petition to stop lion hunting. Totally. Lion and bobcats, predators, in Colorado. So that's what's on the forefront right now. I'm not a native Coloradan. I don't claim to be. However, I like to advocate for the rights of an outdoorsman. And I understand. I like to think that I understand. And I look at the management of wildlife from a scientific factor instead of a emotional, personal.
So let's talk about that. So what you're referring to is, and I actually talking to you about this morning, you made a post about it. And this is where I find out majority of the stuff is I can go to your social stuff and I can get a lot of information. But it's, like you said, it's out in Colorado. It's Ballot Initiative 91, which the aim is to ban mountain lion hunting, you said, right? So one of the things that is interesting whenever you look at it is the way that it's portrayed to the public, right? This is where the political side of things come in, and they really, they spin it, right? So when I was reading up on it, so they're calling it trophy hunting to gain support from the public and potential voters, right? That's the twist that they're putting on it, when that's not the case at all, right? It's managing the predator population out west, right? Just like we manage the elk and the deer population, but what this would do would eliminate the ability to hunt the predators out there. So what does that mean? That means whenever you can't manage the predators, but you're managing the elk and the deer, the predator population continues to grow. Mm-hmm. And one of the things we were talking about as well is Colorado doesn't exactly have a small mountain lion population, right? They're from what I read, they are the largest population of big cats in the US.
I've also read that as well.
So
last I checked, they don't go to Walmart to buy deer tags or elk tags.
Right.
Just a quick tidbit of information. A normal male mountain lion will kill 40 mule deer a year. When a typical hunter in Colorado is going to kill 1 mule deer a year. A typical male mature wolf will kill 30 deer a year, while an entire pack of, I don't know, you want to call it 5, 7, 10 wolves, mature wolves, will kill herds of elk. We can get to that if you'd like to, but getting to the mountain lion stuff, the mountain lion hunting, you mentioned trophy hunting. So I don't know if you've ever hunted mountain lions.
I have not.
Hunting a predator is difficult, especially a mountain lion. I grew up predator hunting coyotes mostly. They will respond to a predator call. Mountain lions are smart, they're keen. You will hardly ever actually watch them or see them in the wild. They know you're there. That's just part of it. They're really spooky when you're hunting in areas that you know there are big cats, because they can stalk. They can stalk way better than we can. But getting to the trophy hunting, yes, it's being spun that way. But what the public doesn't realize, and most of the public that I'm speaking of, we're talking about the Republic of Boulder, Denver, people that, they go outside. They go to REI and get their Patagonia gear, and they go hike a trail, a 9er or a 14er that's got a beaten path up and down, and then they're all of a sudden outdoorsmen. But what those people don't realize is, they want to call it trophy hunting, but it's not. So to hunt successfully a mountain lion in Colorado, there's mostly houndsmen doing it. They have a pack of hounds. They'll ride a mountain road. They'll cut a track. They'll release the hounds. The hounds will then chase the cat down. Not brutally, because the cat's going to tree. It's going to go up a tree. And I have been lion hunting one time, and it was just a kick right in the man jewels, if you know what I mean. It was physical. We were running up and down hills all day. The dogs had the cat treed for 5 hours. It took us 5 hours to get to the cat. And what happened when it got to the cat? Did we kill it? No. Why? Because it wasn't a mature animal. It was a female. What these people in Boulder, or these people that don't understand cat hunting, especially with hounds, is that's the only successful way to lion hunt and take a mature animal. That's the only way to get a cat in the tree so you can look at it, assess it. Is it mature? Is it a female? Is it a female that possibly has cubs somewhere? Because you can see, the plumbing. So that's how you assess the animal that you want to take. And I want to say, I've talked to houndsmen out in Colorado. I know a few of them. I want to say during the season that they're allotted, about 95 to 96% of the time, they're not shooting the cat that they treat. They enjoy watching their hounds work. They enjoy being able to see a cat, an apex predator, because that's what the mountain lion is in Colorado. See a cat from 10 yards, look at it, watch it, learn from it. If it's a mature tom, a big tom, they're probably going to take it. Why? Because it's mature. At some point in that tom's life, he's going to dry up. It means he can't reproduce, but he's still going to be the dominant male in his area. So he's going to mate with the females. What does that mean? If he's mating with the females and he's dry, he's not going to produce offspring. So the younger cats that are able to reproduce are not allowed to mate with the females. So there's no offspring. So that is correct management. What is not correct management is outlawing all of that, allowing male cats to continue doing what they're doing, and not keeping that population in check.
So Do mountain lions even have any predators out there?
Us.
Right.
And so another thing they like to say is, well, that's trophy hunting. They're wasting the meat. Have you ever had mountain lion?
I have not. So I've heard of people eating mountain lion. I've heard it's really good.
It's amazing. So is bobcat.
That's new to me too.
Mm-hmm.
I heard that they are both actually really, really good.
That's so I've got friends, like I said, that live out west, and they prefer mountain lion over mule deer.
Really?
It is tasty. I've had some mountain lion backstrap that was saved for me. Excellent table fare. So that is untrue as well. Are they being wasted? No, they're not being wasted. Their fur is being taken. Their meat is being taken off the mountain. The meat is going to be eaten. The fur is going to, in most cases, they're going to either do a mount, full size body mount, so they can remember the animal correctly, or they're going to turn it into basically a piece that you can look at, you can talk about forever, and remember that animal in that way.
Well, also the thing that it does is it provides income for the local community as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you got your taxidermy,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they make money.
Meat processors,
you're selling tags.
Mm-hmm. Houndsmen. There are hounds out there, or hound outfits out there. They, their income, their yearly income is that they have clientele that are paying them to take them out so they can hunt a lion.
So it's bigger than just what people see at a surface level. It really trickles down. And that's what people don't realize is when you eliminate one thing, and when this starts to happen in their chip, when you start losing hunting rights, it's more and more and more. And it's more than just, oh, you can't hunt that animal. It's local jobs. It's, people coming in from out of state. It's hotels. I mean, there's so many things that people don't consider. And that's the big issue. And then that's the part of the problem. And, and like you said, the issue is people are doing this out of emotion.
Yes.
Like you said, right? You see a Disney, we have done a very good job of making animals into these cuddly, and don't get me wrong, whenever you see an animal, it's incredible to see them in their natural habitat, right? You see them doing what they do, observing them from afar, and they have no idea you're there, and you've been able to watch them do what they do. It's incredible. But it is different than what is portrayed in Hollywood in these Disney movies and stuff.
Correct.
There's so much more to it than just that surface level.
The humanizing is part of what the issue is. The cat ladies and nothing against cat ladies.
That's my wife.
I've noticed that cat ladies are usually the ones that we'll have to have conversations with, if you will. What they don't realize is, take a grizzly bear, for example, a big, dominant, mature male grizzly bear. He looks cool, right? He's not cuddly like the ones in the Disney movies. But what happens in the wild, people don't realize is you have your mature grizzly bear, male grizzly bear, and then you have your female grizzly bear with cubs. In order for that female grizzly to go back into heat, or in estrus, if you will, would be to take her cubs out of the picture. So what does the male grizzly bear do? The big mature male grizzly bear will kill a female grizzly bear's cubs in order for her to go back into estrus so he can mate again. That's not in a Disney movie, but that's what happens.
That's not the only species that does that either.
Black bears do it too.
There's a lot of them that do that. And that's one of the things that, like you said, is not portrayed. No. And nature is raw and real and unforgiving.
It is.
It is. I mean, there's a lot of people that don't realize that. It does not care about your feelings, and nor do those animals.
No, they don't. Let's see. I had a point, and I kind of let it.
Welcome to my life. I got something good.
You said I was articulate. I just forgot what I was going to say.
That's me. That's like, I need to jot this down. I forget about it, and it's gone.
Oh, God, what was I going to say? The humanizing. So not moving past the humanizing, but kind of coupling the humanizing aspect with the taken away from income. Not only is it going to take away income from the hunters or the people that, benefit from hunting itself. But look at areas like Denver and Vail in Colorado, seasonal towns, if you will. A lot of it is, skiing. Like people will go there to ski. What's going to happen in 10, 12 years after the release of wolves? Because if they go unchecked, there is no management. There is no plan for it right now. But if it continues on for 10 or 12 years, what's going to happen to the local herds of elk that stay in the Estes Park area or the Vail area? Their winter range has been taken away because their normal winter range used to be Denver, but now there's a metropolis there, so they're not going to winter in Denver. What's going to happen when, Trevor and Rhonda are watching a herd of 200 head of elk being slaughtered on their favorite ski slope because they don't have anywhere else to go, because their winter range is gone. The ski slopes are there, the tourists are there, so there's some type of aspect. Animals will learn there's a little bit of safety there around people. There's also food. There's easy access to trails and things of that nature. But for the most part, predators will stay away from people. But when the predators start learning that people are not a threat, what's going to happen? You're gonna witness, and this is me speculating, you're gonna witness a slaughter of herds of elk on ski slopes. And at that point, people are gonna be like, man, that wasn't a good idea. And it's gonna be too late.
Or, so I don't know about this as well, but what about whenever, that's where you're right. So they slaughter this elk herd or whatnot, or they get used to feeding around people and they're no longer afraid of people, and then they're in, food becomes scarce. So, house cats, your dogs that's out back.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when do they start wandering into the city area, and it's an even bigger problem. And then how
Absolutely.
do you combat that?
Then you call in, and it's happened in Washington State and Oregon. It's happened because they outlawed not lion hunting, but the hunting of lions with hounds. So basically, if a deer hunter is in the woods and he happens upon a lion, he can shoot it, and it's legal if he has a tag. He or she can shoot it, sorry. But what happens is, they can't just, it's not going to happen like I mentioned before, unless it's just pure luck that a mountain lion walks across you. But what they've done, because the mountain lion population has exploded, has increased, they've called in government hunters. So instead of hunters, out-of-state residents, whatever it may be, going to a store, paying for a lion tag, that state getting those funds, and out-of-state licenses and tags are expensive. Instead of the state getting that money, the state is paying for government hunters to come in and kill animals, in most cases not use those animals, and taken away from the hunters. Why? Because of people's feelings.
Right. So what we've done is we've circled all the way back around. Now we're killing animals because they've not been controlled. They're not getting used now. And it's everything that the anti-hunter didn't want in the first place, which could have been eliminated by successfully managing, bringing income to the local populace,
correct,
supporting local businesses.
And this is going for full circle. I see this happening in Colorado because it happened in Washington and Oregon. It's happened in Idaho. I can't remember exactly what year off the top of my head they released wolves in Idaho. And a couple of the largest wilderness areas, the Lolo region and the Frank Church, used to be the mecca of elk hunting. Frank Church is a wilderness area you can only access, unless you're crazy enough to do it, only access by plane. Mecca of elk hunting. I never personally got to do it. I'm just going off the experiences of others. You go in the Frank Church now, crickets. Not a bugle, not an elk. And that's the long-term effects of the release of predators without a management plan. Because at first, Idaho had no management plan. They're like, no, they're off limits. Farmers, shoot them, there's a fine. Now, they have a management plan. Not shoot on site, but you get tags and you go and you hunt wolves. Because they realized really quickly that, well, we're losing revenue from elk tags from in-state and out-of-state
which
hunters.
is a lot of money. A whole lot of money.
I mean, we're talking about $700 a pop for a non-resident to go hunt. And I don't remember what the tag amounts last year was. I try to keep up on that, but it was way up there. They're losing a lot of money, and they realized that was a bad idea, not just from the revenue and the money aspect, but the wildlife management aspect.
Yeah. So, I mean, it seems like we just, like, when do we ever learn? You know,
I think you'd mentioned it before. There are some groups out there that attempt and that are pushing back on this.
What are some of the groups or whatnot, or organizations that you personally, follow or keep up with that are doing a good job for this?
I like to keep up with SCI, NWTF, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. Those are the groups that I found that they mostly do things right. They're out there advocating for hunters, advocating for access. They're not just pushing for funds. They're not having rendezvous, tap night, beer, whatever beer nights they want to call it. Yeah, that's nonsense. But yeah, they're actually out there doing the good work.
Right.
Those are the ones that I follow personally.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it, I mean, because this is something that if you're a hunter, you should probably look into. I mean, and I don't have a lot of experience, and you always, that's why I always go to you. You do a good job of bringing things to light, and then I'll look into it and dive into a little bit more and be like, oh wow, this is a real issue that has potential to, roll over to us at some point. I mean, just because it's not in your state necessarily doesn't mean it's not going to negatively impact you further down the road. And it seems like it's an uphill battle, and it's going to be an uphill battle, but I think it takes kind of more of an awareness, because you don't see a lot of awareness for it. I mean, you really have to dive into those accounts or those groups to really get updated about it, because, the news, I don't see it in the news much, No,
it's not really a popular issue in the news right now. We have an election going on, if you haven't noticed.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's something that I personally like to keep up with, because it's going to affect me. Not to be selfish, it is going to affect, but yes, I have children. My daughter's not so much the biggest hunter. She likes to look at the animals whenever I bring them home, things of that nature. She'll listen to me when I talk about it. I don't know, she's 15. She might not be listening, but she's letting me talk. Right. It's an important thing. But my 8-year-old son, he is all about it. He is absolute heck on a turkey. Feel sorry for him here in a couple of months. But yes, it's going to affect his access, his ability to go out west and do the things that he wants to do. And that, that's kind of an issue for me. Right.
And that's why it's important to get involved.
Yes.
Yeah.
With the correct groups.
With the correct group. And that's where it's important, is vetting the groups that you do get involved with, because there are a lot of them that are kind of, I don't know the best way to describe them. They're not exactly what they portray. Maybe, is that the best way to say it?
I think you're hitting the nail on the head with that, and I'm not going to name any of those groups. I will leave a small example, if you will. I think we both know who we're talking about. Yes, I think they're not exploiting people, but they're exploiting people's nature to want to belong to something. Right. And for the majority of folks out there, a lot of people are like, man, that looks cool. They say some really good, big words, and they say this thing, but they don't do the research before they go give them their money. And that's unfortunate.
Right.
Do your research, people. But moving on, one of the groups that will not be named, that issue we just talked about as far as the lion hunting, this group touts itself as, we're here for the outdoorsman, we're here for the outdoorsman's access and access to public lands and rights and public waters and this and that. Hunters' rights, all encompassing. But you go to their Instagram pages, and there is not one post.
Crickets.
Bringing awareness of the current petition in Colorado. Even that organization's Colorado chapter has only had one post mentioning that issue we just spoke about. I know, because I've done my own research, why that is. Because it's a predator, and I'll leave it at that. But if that group was so much for hunters' rights, you would think they would be using their WASTA and their power, because they do have some of each, to maybe instill some change and say, hey, wait, let's not make this decision based on emotions. Let's let the people who have the degrees that can make a scientific-based decision based on management make these decisions instead of your feelings. Right. But I haven't seen, like you said, it's been crickets so far. This is being voted on in November, so they have from now until November. But if it was me running those pages, I think I would be probably bringing that to the awareness of my subscribers.
Yeah. That's kind of the whole, in my opinion, the point of those groups and affiliations is to spread the awareness, right? Everybody wants to spread awareness about this, about that, but you have an organization that stood up solely for that, and they're kind of not doing their part to let everybody know. And like I said, I have kids too, my boys are all about being in the woods and hunting, especially my oldest right now. That's what he lives for. And to think about it and, what it's like now, what is it going to be like, in 10 years, whenever he's a young adult and, he wants to go out and do things. Is he going to have that capability or that, the ability to go out there and do that stuff? It's, it's kind of, up in the air at this point. And if, hunters don't get together and speak on this and spread that awareness, it's only going to, I think, continue to get worse for everybody.
Correct.
So,
we talked a lot about the negative stuff. Let's talk about something positive real quick. Talking about the proper management, the North American model of wildlife management, if you will. Big words. Just to mention one instance where it's worked, the wild turkey. When I was growing up, I'm 40 years old right now. When I was growing up, if I wanted, turkeys were few and far between. You had to hunt hard to even see one.
Here or in Georgia?
Georgia.
Okay.
But even in the eastern states, those years, turkeys were not unheard of, but they were not as populated as they are now. Those groups got together. They created a management practice or a management plan. And then if you look at the turkey population now, some people will say, oh, it's dwindling or this and that. The numbers are fluctuating because the massive amounts of new hunters coming in, and turkeys are relatively easy to hunt if you basically
speak for yourself.
If you do your research and put in your time. Not saying you don't do any of those, but you are a businessman. You're running a business.
It's my excuse for everything, though. Why didn't it work? Dude, I'm a businessman. I don't know.
But relatively easy to hunt. And so, yeah, those numbers are dwindling a little bit. Not dwindling, but they fluctuate.
Right.
During the COVID years, because COVID happened March 2020, right before spring. The spring turkey season in 2020, those poor turkeys.
Oh my gosh, man. I know even just hammered. The amount of product that we sold, the influx was unbelievable for that year.
But compare the numbers currently to 30, 40 years ago, even with whitetail deer. Right. Proper management works. The eastern states, the Midwestern states, they can, attest to that.
Yeah. So, I mean, there is hope. It's just
absolutely
there's hope.
But I wanted to end that conversation on a positive note.
Absolutely, as we should, right? I think there are some, like you said, there's some really great organizations out there that are doing everything in their power to make an impact, and it just takes, like this, spreading that awareness, and hopefully people will listen, and they'll get interested, and they'll try to get involved as best they can. But so let's move on from that, Debbie Downer. But let's talk into something a little bit more that's actually right around the corner, turkey hunting. You've been a pretty successful turkey hunter, as your son has as well.
I think he's correct. Yes.
Yes.
So moving on, that's a point of contention.
There you go. Yeah. So so you're a big turkey hunter. I mean, you pretty much hunt everything, but been a very successful turkey hunter. Do you hunt? We'll harp back on the traditional side. Do you hunt turkey with a trad bow as well?
So, yes, I do. I do both.
Shotgun and traditional.
Yes. I've killed. I don't know, 5 or 6, maybe seven, off the top of my head. Can't remember, with a bow, with a traditional bow. Now, 6 with traditional, 1 with a compound. There we go. Trying to access my memory here. So yes, and it is a challenge, trying to hit such a small target, because most of the time they're constantly moving. But yes, it can be done, and it is. I've been successful with it. Are
you hunting out of a blind, or are you just hunting off the ground with a ghillie suit on with the?
I know some guys, some older gentlemen, that do the ghillie suit with a traditional bow back in Georgia. They are some salt of the earth, straight killers. Yeah. However, that's not me. I've tried it. And if you've ever been turkey hunting, you've heard that put. I hear that a lot whenever I try to turkey hunt out of a ghillie suit with a traditional bow. So no, I'm mostly hunting out of a blind whenever I'm hunting with the archery equipment.
Okay. So, but you also do a lot of the run and gun stuff, though.
I love it. There's nothing like it to me. Makes me feel like I'm a child again. Wake up, go, use alcohol, locate a gobbler, get up to him, couple of tree yelps, and then a fly down cackle. And this is all turkey speak. Sorry if you don't understand that. Quick fly down cackle, and then that you wait, and then that gobbler just lands in your lap because he's expecting Susie to be sitting there.
Right.
There's nothing like it to me. It's awesome. Actually, the one that I killed, I usually only kill 1 a year because in North Carolina we get 2 tags. I'm trying to do my part. 1 less turkey for me, maybe 1 more turkey lives, or 1 more turkey for a newer hunter. So I don't have a problem with turkey hunting. I usually go out and I'll get my turkey, but I have no need for 2, because usually my son is killing 1 as well.
Yeah, he had a good season last year, didn't he?
He did. It's he was 7 then, but my 7-year-old has killed a bigger bird than I have or probably ever will. On his 3rd season. I think he killed his first turkey when he was 5, and I'm hunting out of the blind with him. I'm trying to get him out of the blind this year to run a gun with me, so he can learn how to actually do it. Not correctly, but to do it a different way.
So what kind of gun does he use? A 410?
He's got a little Rossi 410 shooting.
I need to make note of this because Gavin wants to go this year, and he's like, "Dude, we got to do some turkey hunting." I'm like, "Bro, we can do it, but you need to do your research because I ain't good at it."
Yeah, the little Rossi 410. It's pretty. It makes quick medicine of them. I even like carrying that shotgun every once in a while because it's so light.
Yeah. But
that's what he's using. I put it on a tripod for him.
Okay.
I have a what's called a triclops mount, kind of like a hog saddle, but little different. And then we'll sit there. I'll let him work the call every once in a while because I want him to get used to to learn the language, because that's what it is. It's not just sitting there, yap.
Hammering that thing.
You're speaking a language, speaking their language. The quicker you learn that language, is the quicker you're gonna have a turkey sitting in your lap. But I'm letting him work the call a little bit. But as soon as we get one worked up, Daddy's taking Time to go to work.
Right. So whenever getting kids involved in hunting to me is important, right? So I try to do everything I can. That's the thing this year. I'm taking Gavin. He plans to go to Kentucky with me to do some deer hunting, but he wants to do some turkey hunting this spring. So how are you getting, are you pre-scouting everything and then you're setting a blind up because where they're roosting at night? You'll go set up a blind, in the evening. Like, how are you getting on turkeys with your son?
So if you've hunted turkeys long enough, you realize that, well, you'll start to learn that they basically do the same thing every day. They come out of the tree in the morning, and social hour usually begins. Social hour is what I like. They're flocking up. They're trying to gather up their hens, or the hens are trying to lure the males in, and usually that takes place in an open area so they can see each other, so they can both see each other and they can see predators, because that's most of the time when they're most vocal, in the morning like that. So they're being vocal to basically say, hey, I'm here, come on over. So that's when a lot of people have the success. And that's going to take place in an open area. I have scouted for turkeys. I like to see, turkey sign, oh, there's tracks here, which way they're going. They're going, okay, well, they're going that way, maybe to feed. But in most cases, in that morning time frame, it's going to take place somewhere in the open, maybe where there'll be a logging road or a food plot, the corner of a field. A lot of places they're going to fly to a high point in a field if they're using a field, so they can see a little bit better.
Right.
They are a prey animal. They don't want to be in defilade, because they're in defilade. They're below. If you've run and gunned enough, when the turkey gets in defilade, you can go kill him. So they're going to try to avoid that the best they can. In a lot of cases, the animal instinct to mate takes over, and that he trips up a little bit and you get him. But so a lot of times that social hour is going to take place in the morning, and then they're gonna move off, whether it be to feed or just kind of frolic through the woods. There is no rhyme or reason to turkeys. People think they can pattern a turkey. They're gonna do whatever they want. I like to say there's no rhyme or reason. Can you pattern a group of turkeys? Yeah, if you have a group of turkeys on your property, they're probably gonna do the same thing every day.
Right.
Unless you go in there and booger them up, then they're gonna move a little bit possibly. But I found that if you find a roost tree, where the flock or where the toms are going to roost, then you can, in the most cases, get a really good crack at them in the morning. So what I like to do, and it's kind of like a ritual with me and my boy, we'll go out the day before youth season, the evening before youth season, and try to locate a tom. Just a few calls, see if you can get them fired up, because most of the time, early season like that, they're still vocal. And they're still going to crack back at you, gobble back at you. So he's right there. And then if you listen hard enough, you can actually hear the turkey. If you're a couple hundred yards away, you can hear the turkeys flying up.
Yeah.
They're loud.
Yes, they are.
So cool, they're there. And then you go home, make your game plan where you're going to go. So at that point, I would go in way before first light and set up the blind, get ready, set the decoys out, and then start off my sequence of calls closer to the first light. Sequence of calls that I usually use are some light tree yelps. It's basically just a hen yelping, but very, very soft. And if you don't get a response, maybe add some more volume to it. But eventually he's gonna fire off. I'm like, there he is. And then depending on what mood he's in, he's either gonna keep firing off to try to get you to talk back to him, or he's gonna shut up. If he keeps firing off, don't say anything. There's no reason to call back. He knows where you're at. Closer to daylight, I like to do the fly down cackle, because a lot of people are like, I don't like using that. Well, it works for me. I'll basically, it's a sequence of clucks. I take off my hat, and I look like a complete fool doing it. Take off my hat and just flip it around. It sounds like wings flapping down from a tree.
Okay.
And it works. It works for me.
What about as far as decoys go? How do you run decoys? Do you run like, I'm going to run a Jake and one hen or two hens? I mean, how do you set decoys up? And does it differ throughout the season, like early season and the later part of the season?
It does differ throughout the season. So early season, especially during youth, it is super easy to get a mature gobbler worked up over a Jake sitting over the top of a hen.
Really?
They don't like it. Sometimes if they see it, you don't even got to call. You don't have to do anything. Just sit there and wait.
Just
charge right
over.
Charge right in and start fighting them. Good buddy of mine, partner of mine, he's got footage of his little girl's turkey that she shot last year, and that's exactly what happened. He set his decoys up just like that, and gobbler came running in, fighting that Jake decoy, and his daughter got her first turkey. It's pretty awesome footage. Later on during the season, and if I'm hunting turkeys in the evening, most of the time I'll use a lone hen. Put it out at a high point or out in an open area and just kind of wait it out. But middle of the season, lone hen. And then towards the end of the season, I'll bring the Jake back into the picture, because at that point the gobblers are lonely. They're looking for ladies. I found that generally I either kill them the first of the season when they're still vocal, or in the end when they're out looking real hard, when most of the hens have been bred at that point.
So what about, do you ever use a strutting tom decoy?
I've never had any luck with it. I've never used one.
Is that like too aggressive?
I mean, you could. I've had some friends that have used it. I've never used one for that reason. I don't want another mature gobbler sitting in my spread.
Right, that makes sense.
I mean, a turkey is a turkey to me. It's not a white-tailed deer.
Right.
I love hunting turkeys. I love hunting whitetails. But a turkey's a turkey. If I shoot one that's got small spurs, as long as it's a mature bird, I don't care.
Yeah.
So I don't want the chance of a less mature bird being scared off by a mature-looking decoy.
That makes sense. So what about, like with deer hunting, weather and everything plays a big role in being successful. What about with turkeys? Is there a specific weather pattern you look for? Or is it like, man, this season's short, I'm getting out there, going to make it happen?
All of the above. So season is short. Yes, get out there as much as you can. A lot of people don't like turkey hunting in the rain.
I see a lot of turkey out in the fields in the rain.
There you go. So what does a turkey do? So there's, in the spring around here especially, we have rain, we have wind. So what the wind does, if it's a really windy day, they're not going to hear a call as well, because the wind is constantly changing directions. But thank goodness turkey's not a whitetail. It's not going to smell you.
Right.
But what the wind does to a flock is it breaks up the flock. They can't hear each other. If they can't hear your call, they can't hear each other either. So what a turkey's going to do is basically wander around until they find a flock. So you find your open area, your social area, and put your decoy out there. In most cases, you sit there and be quiet. It's going to happen if there's a one in the area. If you add some rain in there too, most of the time so you mentioned seeing turkeys out in the field when it's raining. A heavy rain, most of the time, like a good dousing, they're not going to be out in the field. Light sprinkle, most of the time. But after a good heavy rain, as soon as that rain stops, as soon as that weather breaks, get your butt out there, sit on an open area, because they're going to want to dry out. Their feathers, they do have some natural water shedding ability, but their feathers are going to be damp. It's going to be hard for them to fly because they're big and clumsy anyway whenever they try to fly. Especially towards the evening time frame, they're going to want to dry out. So if you find yourself close to a field and the rain has just broke, sit there and be quiet. Get ready.
Wait on. So what do you plan on doing this year? Are you gonna hunt them with the bow this year, or do you like, hey, I'm gonna start off with a bow. If it doesn't go well, I'm gonna move to the shotgun, or is it just like that? This year I'm gonna hunt with the shotgun.
So I do hunt on base. Mm-hmm. So during turkey season, you're kind of at the whim of training areas and what's open and what's closed. So if I'm a father, my husband, I have a very active daughter, active in school clubs and whatnot, and then I'm also I've got a very active son in athletics, basketball. I'm assistant coach for baseball this year, so my spring is going to be pretty busy. So if I get a chance to go in the woods and there's nothing open, I'm going to go to an archery area. I'm going to set up my blind and I'm going to locate and then set up my blind and then go for it. If there's some open firearms areas open, I'm going to get in there and run a gun.
So it's just, do you prefer one over the other?
I love shooting them with a bow, but I also love having one land in my lap.
Yeah.
And that, like I said, that happened last year. It was just a textbook thing. This turkey had been giving me the slip. And I went the evening before. I was hunting, but I was just sitting there quietly and saw him. He was out across. He crossed a logging road in front of me. I'm like, I know where you're going. He's going to the edge of this swamp. There's a couple of really tall jack pines. That's exactly where he's gonna fly up. Get to dark. I walk down that logging road a little bit. Hit a crow. Not a crow. Hit a owl call, and he fires off at me. That's where you're at. I'll see you in the morning. Get there early in the morning. Set up. Do my routine of light tree yelps, and then fly down cackle. And he flew down and landed 15 yards from me. So
quick work of it.
Yeah, quick work. I was at home eating a biscuit by 7:30.
That's the way you want it to go, right there.
So that's if I can. I would like to say that I have my favorite way of doing it, but I enjoy both of them.
Yeah.
Because when you're in a blind, turkey's eyesight, it is keen. They can see everything. If they're going to get you, they're going to get you with their eyes. If you're sitting in a blind and you're being quiet and you set up your blind correctly, the sun's not shining into it, they don't see you in there, you can watch turkeys do turkey things, and you can learn a lot from doing that. Watch how they communicate with each other. Within 10 minutes not even within 5 minutes of watching a flock of turkeys, you can visually see who the lead hen is. And then you can use that to your advantage. Say the next day you're out there and you got gobblers with that lead hen with that flock, and they're locked up 60 yards out, can't get a shot. Well, you listen to what that lead hen is doing, because you've already identified which lead hen it is. Most of the time it's the bigger one, but it can also be like who's got the worst attitude problem. Right. Make her mad. Because if a locked up gobbler is not coming to you, well, what do? You make the hen come to you. So everything she's doing, repeat it. Cut her off. She'll eventually come to you and be like, who is this over here? And then there's your gobbler.
There it is. There's the opportunity. So what about whenever you're setting up your blind? Do you brush your blind in, or you just throw that thing out there and you're good?
I just throw it out there.
No issues.
And a lot of people do brush them in. I've found that as long as you set your blind up where the sun is not going to be, as it's coming up, shining into your blind, shining on your face, you're not going to have an issue. Turkeys don't. And it's super weird, because if you go whitetail hunting, throw up a blind that's not been there before, right, and a mature doe or any type of deer comes out, what are they doing?
Yeah, they're gone.
Blowing at you.
Yeah, they're out.
But a turkey, it doesn't seem like they really care.
Yeah.
They don't see you move.
My biggest issue is setting up the dang blind.
Setting up blinds in the dark is fun.
Dude, you want to see me look like a maniac trying to get that thing to open up or deploy is an absolute, and then breaking it down. Mm-hmm. Like,
and trying to do it quietly.
Yeah. I'm looking at one side's collapsed. Trying to get it.
I have found, I got one last year. I didn't get to use it, but one of those see-through blinds. Like as you're sitting in it, you have your shooting windows, mm-hmm. but as you're looking in, if you're from the outside looking in, you can't see anything. But right. When you're on the inside of it, you can literally see everything 360.
Really?
I got one of those. I'm interested. I can't wait to try that one out.
Are you shooting? Are you using the screen and shooting through the screen, or do you have the screen down?
I have the screen down.
Okay, yeah. It's
a lot of guys shooting compounds that leave the screen up and just shoot through the screen material
with the bow.
With a bow.
That's always worried me, because anything can deflect that arrow.
If you're using a mechanical, you might as well just not even shoot.
Right.
The screen. It's going to deploy, and your arrow's just going to go off and then never land.
If you shoot them with a compound bow, do you use a mechanical?
I would rather.
That's what I'd
big, heavy cut in diameter.
Yeah.
Because you're shooting a small target on a turkey.
Right.
So
like a 2-inch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Big axe. Swiker makes a pretty good one.
Yeah.
150 grain, 3-inch cut in diameter.
Yeah, just a monster of a blade. Oh, good deal. What else you got? Anything else? Any big trips planned this year? I know last year you said you were gone, dude. When I talked to you, you went to New York. You were gone for, like you said, like 16 days or something like that. What do you got this year?
I don't have anything big planned. Work has been pretty stacked for me. The thing with, my career right now, it stays pretty busy. And I can't really plan. I would love to go out west and do some things. However, putting in the time and planning those to just have something come up last minute would pretty much break my heart. And I found that being in Eastern Carolina during September, during the elk rut, we usually have to deal with hurricanes.
Oh yes.
So that ruined an that ruined an elk hunt for me in 2019 whenever Florence hit. Big plans to go to Idaho, had everything shipped out there with a buddy, like we were ready to go. Florence, I'm like, it's not going to happen now. We got to stay back here and put our house back together.
Yeah, I understand.
It happened last year too. So September last year we got another hurricane, but nothing big. Probably usually we'll make time to do the New York trip, and then we'll see how the draws go. If I get drawn for some high preference point type hunts out west, then I will have to plan something pretty hastily. But we'll see if that happens.
Well, good deal. Well, I know you're a pretty private individual. Do you have any social channels anybody can follow you on, or you're pretty private from what
I do. I have Facebook. I have Instagram. I can't even remember my Instagram handle. I think it might be JLong13 or something like that. Account is set to private.
Got to be approved, guys. We made the cut, so you may not, but you do put out a lot of good information, though, especially for advocating for hunters. So that was one of the reasons I asked, because you are very in tune with that. And if I'm looking for anything, I can always find it on your page. So that's why I ask.
I try to keep the banter at a minimum, but sometimes I get a little carried away,
as we all do,
when I'm passionate about something.
That's right.
Very passionate.
Gotta be.
Especially about the things we talked about. So, I try to keep that to a minimum, but for the most part, everything else that I post is just family stuff. I do like to throw some hunting pictures on there, some stuff like that, so I don't lose it, because I've found that phones break, especially when they fall into rivers. External hard drives break, computers fail, so social media is kind of a way for me to put some photos out there that I don't really want to lose.
Right. And just remember that, guys, once you put it out there, it's always there. We just talked about this.
Take it away.
Can't take it away. The internet is forever.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me, man. It's always great to sit down and talk with you. Very informative. You always have you have a ton of experience. So I love picking your brain and getting to sit down with you today and talk about something that's very important, I think, for all hunters. I just appreciate you taking the time and sitting down. And I need to get with you sooner than later so we can get my Satori set up and tuned correctly, so I can make something happen or not happen with that thing eventually.
We can definitely get that done. I'll help you with your soulless recurve.
My soulless recurve.
I'm kidding. That was
one day whenever I get it dialed in, I'll do the true traditional route, right? It's got to be a wood bow that's made out of like a special tree. It's a very, very, again, the traditional community is another one of those. Like
there are some camps. I just made a joke. Those Satoris that you carry in the store, you can turn those into a machine, because the ILF setup, you can do so many things with it. You can put a rest on it. You can align the limbs correctly. You can change your tiller.
All of this I need your assistance with.
Yeah, and all these things, like, you can manage to get them close with a wooden bow, but all those adjustments, like, you can turn that Satori or those ILF rigs into a shooting machine. It's make pretty quick work of it.
Yeah, well, I'll need all the help I can get. Like I said, it's still very foreign to me. But it is, the more I play with it, man, the more I'm like, oh man, this might be the move. So
I find myself, even now, after doing it for a while, I'll sit there, I'll shoot. Man, I love watching that arrow fly.
Dude, it's just fun, man, because you can just step out. You got a tab, you got the bow, you got a couple of arrows.
I guess before we close, anybody that's interested in doing it, and I don't know if you've done it yet, you don't really have to have a target. There's a thing called stump shooting, but you don't really have to shoot stumps. You get a filled tip or a blunt tip from the store here or online. Throw it on your arrows. Throw some tennis balls out in your yard. I mean, you're not blowing through a target like you are with a compound. Have to worry about what lies beyond it. You're shooting into the ground, but you get good at shooting a tennis ball at 20 yards with a blunt tip.
Yeah, it'll humble you real quick too.
Well, it'll humble you, but then once it starts coming together, you're like,
yeah, I'm still working on it.
It is doable. I mean, I don't know if you looked at I didn't really take score in that last 3D shoot, but Ruben was wearing it out.
Ruben's a good shooter, man.
Oh, he is.
He's pretty talented with a bow. I mean, you put a compound bow in his hand, a traditional bow, he does a heck of a job with it, which makes me a little jealous. I'm like, why are you so good at this?
Some people have to work a little harder. I found that I'm one of those.
I definitely am. It takes everything.
Yeah, he was out there like a champ.
He was. He shot really, really good this last one. We do got another 3D event coming up on March 16th. I was glad you were able to make the other one. I know you're busy, so.
I might be able to make the March 16th. We'll see what work's got in store.
Well, I have some other cool targets set up out there. We're doing something a little different this time too. So
Jurassic Park?
Yeah. Maybe one day. I've got a lot of targets, but I don't got all that. I got one dinosaur target.
No. Okay. Well, one's enough.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we're going to close this thing again. I appreciate you, Joe. As always, all the information you put out, and just taking the time to assist me with everything you have. And it's always good to see you and, when you stop in the shop. So
absolutely.
Appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having me.
Absolutely. So appreciate you guys for watching. This was episode 6. This is with Joe Long. We appreciate you guys watching, and we will see you all in the next video.